So I think it's really going to have an effect on the jury. The emphasis on the fact that the police never investigated any of the complaints of animal cruelty. So Zoe went in herself. I think that will be very powerful. And I think that they will get even more pissed off at Petaluma Poultry for that, for arresting a 22-year-old. Well, she was 20 when she was arrested. So, but putting on trial a 22-year-old who has for a long time been trying to protect these chickens. And finally, because law enforcement didn't act, went in herself.
Yeah. And here's just a little of a summary of a testimony of this officer. The question from the defense: did you look into any possible criminal animal cruelty happening there? The officer: no, I walked in and I only saw one truck loaded with animals. One or two trucks, only one. And then the defense attorney, I think in a very clever way, gets in the system, brings in the cruelty of the system based on familiarity. Would you say that truck contains approximately 4,000 chickens? The answer is kind of irrelevant whether he knew it or not. Just the idea that a truck is packed with 4,000 chickens, okay? To me, that says, that's got to telegraph something to the jury, Alexandra.
Well, you can see in the footage that Matthew says they keep playing over and over, that those chickens are packed in. In fact, she has trouble opening it because it's so heavy with chickens. And so clearly there's animal cruelty. The question, and the lawyers on this panel will be able to answer it better: will the judge narrow and pretty much sort of, I don't want to use the word hog tie, but will they tie the hands of the jury so that they have to charge Zoe with something and not consider animal cruelty at all? That is a question. And this judge seems very fair because I was there the first couple days of the trial, but the law has not moved very far forward for animals. So it's really a question of, I believe, and please have the lawyers comment on this, whether the parameters of the charges will allow the jury to consider animal cruelty.
And is this, technically, I just want to know, can you see this video?
Yeah, I can.
Okay, great. All right. Well, let's just do a quick round robin with the attorneys. I mean, Justine, do you think that animal cruelty in some way, shape, or form will be considered by the jurors?
Well, it remains to be seen in the jury instructions. We'll have to see what the judge says. I will say, with Wayne's conviction on felony conspiracy, in his appeal, he did argue that the judge restricted his intent too much and argued that there was an incorrect narrowing of the scope and of the intent, so the jury was precluded from considering his good faith belief in the right to rescue as a valid defense. So I think the judge here, Judge Noce, is allowing the line of questioning. It was very clever the way the defense attorney has been able, with questioning the police officer, to get in the prior investigation. You didn't know. Did you know about the animal cruelty, that she had complained about animal cruelty? And the officer witness was also caught in an inconsistency, because at first he said no, that he didn't know Zoe had complained about animal cruelty and had asked for investigations. And then the defense attorney said, well, actually, you testified previously that you did know about the animal cruelty. So
yeah, and it was a question of, I believe, in fairness, it was a question of when he learned about it. But I want to go quickly to Shaka, and then we're going to go back out to, I know you only have 4 minutes, Alexandra, so let's get Shaka's response, and then I have one other question for you, and then we'll go back to Matthew. Go ahead, Shaka.
Yeah, so the judge seems like he's not going to let animal cruelty be considered as part of any defense to the trespass, but he's allowing it for the state of mind of Zoe that might negate the conspiracy charge. So, and it looks like he's giving them a wide berth to use a lot of that information. So it looks like it's going well in that regard, and it's good for the jury to hear all that information.
Well, thank you for that, Shaka. I want to play another thing that really stood out to me, and this is the fact that this police officer was asked whether he interacted with the animals, and he said, I wouldn't interact with those products. And that set off so many comments on social media that the police officer is treating these sentient beings as mere products. I mean, to me, that is the essential cultural divide. And before we attack him, anybody who goes to the grocery store and buys a chicken product is doing the same thing, except that they're doing it after the animal has died. What are your thoughts on that, Alexandra?
Well, I know that the defense will use the names Poppy, Ivy, Azalea, and Aster a lot, so that, and they will also gender them. They will not be it. And we did that in our trial, so much so we named the chickens are named Jax and Ethan. The prosecution in the beginning called them it and the chickens, and then they started calling them by their names towards the end of the trial. So I know that Chris and Kevin, her attorneys, and Zoe herself, and all the DXE activists who will testify will use their names and their genders, and not to treat them like products.
And there you are. In your case, again, you were acquitted. This was several years ago. And you also, it was videotaped. It's an open rescue. And then you explained to the jury what open rescue was all about. Can you give us a summary of that and what you think your most effective remarks to the jury were?
Open rescue is when activists go into a facility and document the situation, and also if there is a sick animal, we are able to provide health care and a sanctuary for them, we will rescue them. And we do that without covering our faces. And in fact, we put it on the internet with our names often, and as Alicia and I did, and as Zoe has. And this sort of forces a spotlight on the company who's spending so much energy trying to cover up things, and we are being completely open. It kind of makes us invulnerable, because they can't attack us for anything, because we'll tell them anything. Yes, I was there. Yes, I removed that chicken. Yes, I believe that there's cruelty. We're not hiding anything, and that is our strength. That is our strength, and it is Zoe's strength too. She's been on social media for years talking about the cruelty at this place, and then she acted, and she also put that on social media. It's hard to make that look bad, really. It really is, and that's what the Petaluma Poultry and the prosecution are trying so hard to do, is they're trying to vilify her, and I don't think it's going to work.
Well, I want to thank Alexandra Paul. I know you're a very busy lady. I appreciate you so much for coming on. And I know you're going to come back every so often. So we'll keep sending you the links and join when you can.
Thank you, everybody. And especially you, Jane, for keeping this in the spotlight. Bye, y'all. See you soon.
It's a team effort. Thank you. So by the way, before we move on, I want to invite the company on at any time. The company has denied all animal cruelty allegations. Purdue says it has high animal welfare standards. And they have also said that they regard all these claims as false, pushed by an extreme group, DXE, with the ultimate goal of ending animal agriculture altogether and opposing a radical agenda that would threaten the livelihoods of Sonoma County farmers. Here is their website, corporate.purduefarms.com/responsibility/animal-care. Check it out. We invite that company on anytime. We would love to dialogue. I want to get back to the societal cultural battle happening here. And I think it was epitomized by the comment in court during the prosecution's case while they were interviewing, or maybe it was when the defense was doing the cross-examination. I can't remember at this time. I don't want to be wrong. But the police officer did say, I would not interact with these products because of contamination risk. When he's talking about live animals in a truck. Also, the fact that the defense was able to bring out that in these trucks, 4,000 approximately, according to the defense, 4,000 animals are packed into these trucks. Obviously, that is something that these animals would not want to be in. Is this an example of the culture war? The war about who are animals? Are they mere products, or are they sentient beings with eyes and hearts who have the ability to feel pain and suffering and deserve rights? Take it away. Let's start with Lindsay Baker.
Well, of course, they're not objects. And I think, when you get a person, if a person looks at a chicken, let's say they're at a sanctuary or a petting zoo, which petting zoos are very bad, and that's a whole other subject. But they're gonna have to acknowledge that it's a living, feeling thing. It's just a matter of how much consciousness they put into that, and how much brainwashing is out there, especially because so many people, not only what, almost 9 million chickens a year are killed.
No, no, I'm sorry. I'm going to have to correct you.
Sorry, 9 billion.
No, 75 billion.
Really? I looked it up. Okay.
Over 7. You could be talking about the United States. I'm talking about globally.
Okay.
Chickens don't know.
It's a lot.
Chickens don't know national boundaries.
Yeah.
140,000 chickens are killed every minute on this planet. The most killed animal for food. So therefore,
my point was, it's not just for food. They're used in so many ways. Feathers. I mean, these, like I said, these things where they have parties and they bring animals to the party. They are used as objects. I was a child. I was given a chicken and a duck, and I think I got salmonella poisoning, but my parents didn't know. I don't know how prevalent that is in our part, like California, but I know in some places it's probably going on. They're just looked upon as an object.
Yeah. And I mean, all animals are treated brutally in the factory farming system. Observers would say, I'm saying it, that's my opinion. Industrialized animal, there's no nice way to kill one animal or any living being who doesn't want to die. But to kill 140,000 every minute on this planet, and I am not talking about any one particular company, Shaka. I am talking about industrialized animal agriculture that is a relatively new phenomenon in human history. Just like fast food is a relatively new phenomenon in in human history. These are not traditions. Industrialized animal agriculture is new. The Industrial Revolution itself is only a couple of 100 years old.
Well, I think these are things that we don't necessarily know growing up. And so it's a culture war, and it's on the prosecution side. If I'm the prosecution, I'm telling all the witnesses I call, don't refer to them in any way that humanizes the chicken. I want them to be viewed as products. But at the same time, if the defense is doing their job, they're going to be watching the jury. And if the jury starts to get offended by the way the prosecution is referring to these animals, then they will start to shift, and they might start referring to them by name in order to appease the jury to get their point across.
And again, if you're just joining us, the prosecution rested his case after only calling 3 people. Remember, it took 4 weeks to get to opening statements. That's how controversial this case is. And the truth is that it was very difficult to pick a jury, in part because a lot of people in this town, this community, know about this case, and because a flyer was sent out by Animal Agriculture to thousands of people, if not everybody. I don't know. A lot of people. This glossy flyer was sent out to Sonoma County residents before this trial, right before this trial, or as this trial was getting started. Stand with Sonoma County poultry workers. Okay, so right there, some would argue that's an attempt to influence the jury because they were just getting jury selection underway. So it took so long to pick this jury. And now, in just a couple of days, the prosecution has rested its case in chief, which was the breaking news we brought you at the start of this broadcast. However, it doesn't mean that they have just said, okay, we're done. After Zoe Rosenberg testifies, and frankly, we're assuming, Justine Block, that Zoe Rosenberg is going to testify. You never know. A decision is never announced about that in advance. Is that not true?
My understanding is that she is planning to testify based on the information coming out from the defense, but we'll have to see. And the judge had reserved making a decision on whether the rebuttal witnesses, the 2 remaining rebuttal witnesses, would be allowed to testify in a rebuttal.
Yeah. Okay. Well,
Do-
you're absolutely right. She's expected to testify. In most cases, and I've covered many, many criminal cases where the big question is the defendant going to take the stand? I remember with Casey Anthony, she didn't take the stand. Everybody's wondering. Then I remember with Jodi Arias, and I'll never forget that moment. It was broadcast live on television. They took a quick break, and all of a sudden, there's Jodi Arias headed for the witness stand. And everyone was like, oh my God. And you know how many days she stayed on that witness stand? Something like 18 days. One of the longest testimonies I've ever seen. And she had seemed to be enjoying quite a bit of it, which was something the jurors who convicted her took note of, perhaps. But it's not just, is Zoe going to take the stand? How long is she going to be on the stand? So these are things that make this trial extremely compelling. And Unchained TV is going to bring you the very latest every single day. We're going to go live at 1 p.m. Pacific. And the court's dark on Wednesdays, but that doesn't stop the members of Direct Action Everywhere from going around and doing all sorts of activities. If the idea was, if the prosecution or the district attorney's idea was, let's drag this trial out, those folks that have come from all over the country to support Zoe, they'll drift off after a couple of weeks, and they're going to be tired of waiting. I don't think they really know what these folks are like, because every time there is a day off or the court is dark, this is an example. They did a caravan to factory farms all across Northern California, driving for 200 miles, marching, chanting. These are generally young people and full of energy. And every time court goes dark, they get even busier. So that's another reason why I think it's really, really very questionable. How could you possibly, as an investigator, as a police officer who's living in this community where this has been a dominant controversy for years and years and years, with various open rescues in Northern California, anybody who really lives in the United States probably knows about this, much less in Northern California, where he says he went in there and did not have any idea that there were animal cruelty allegations against this company. Final thoughts. Let's start with Lindsay Baker. And again, we're going to be back Monday. It's going to be a big day. It's the start of the defense case on Monday. Lindsay.
I'm very excited, because who knows what we're going to find out on Monday. But the one thing I did notice, and this is just my observation, it seems like the prosecution is bagging, because now, isn't it like they just brought up this $100,000 loss? Wouldn't that have been stated earlier? I'm not sure. I don't know. Also, the dismissal of the 2 witnesses, they decided they weren't going to have them testify. And also, I just think overall, it's not going the way they want it to go. And I think they might be rethinking how they're going to address this whole situation and try to get the case tried in their favor.
Well, let me say this. They did offer Zoe Rosenberg plea bargains, and she declined. Essentially, according to her, risking her life to make this point about chickens being sentient beings who are deserving of rights and who have a right not to be subjected to pain and suffering. This is her argument. But just because they offered her plea deals doesn't mean, and now because they have a short prosecution initial case, their case in chief, doesn't mean they're throwing up their hands. Right. This could be a complete strategy to come back after Zoe testifies, with their big guns. So we'll see. We'll see. Shaka, your final thoughts.
Well, the exciting part about the prosecution arresting is now it's the opportunity for the defense to go for a directed verdict and say the prosecution didn't prove essential elements beyond a reasonable doubt of their case. And so doing that, we might get an acquittal on some of these charges. It would be interesting to see if they acquit, if the judge agrees that the essential element for conspiracy was not proven. So we'll see.
I think you've just raised a very important point. So what you're saying is that when the prosecution rests and then the defense is able to start, there's an opportunity in that window for them to say, this case wasn't established, throw it out. Is that what you're saying? Shocker.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. So if the prosecution didn't prove one or more of the essential elements of their case beyond a reasonable doubt, then the judge can say, we don't have to go further. We're dropping that charge.
Wow. Fascinating. All right. Final thought to our attorney, our other fabulous attorney, Justine Block.
Well, we're keeping this going every day on the trial. It's exciting. This is important to see how this moves forward now into the defense's court and to hear the jury. That's really going to be important how this is framed for the jury. This is in the hands of the jury. The culture war that you talked about is in the hands of the jury. Look forward to coming back on Monday.
Yeah. Thank you all. You're an amazing panel. I appreciate, just for you folks at home watching, this is a lot of hard work by not just myself, but all of our team members who are devoting their time. We have 2 attorneys here who have cases that they have to handle. They're stopping that to give us insight because we really do need attorneys when we're talking about this stuff. So I want to especially thank our attorneys, but also our amazing panelists, Lindsay Baker, host of the Action Hour on Unchained TV. And all we ask of you at home is share this out. Share this out because while we are replicating networks like CNN or Court TV, both places where I worked and did cover trials, we obviously don't have the reach of a CNN or a Court TV. So we need you guys, gals, to help and share it out far and wide. We will see you Monday at 1 p.m. Pacific. It's going to be a huge day. It's the start of the defense case. Stay right there.